Hey guys, this is going to be my top five-ish picks for wide receiver for DFS on DraftKings for week 3 of the NFL season. Let's go ahead and jump into it. To start us off for our top values for wide receiver this week, we're looking at Ashton Dueling at $3,900 in a matchup against Kansas City. They're playing at home in Indianapolis, coming off a really terrible week against the Jacksonville Jaguars, who really put a roadblock as far as offensive flow for that game. The defense really shut down Jonathan Taylor, limited him to one of his worst fantasy days in recent memory, along with Matt Ryan, who really had a terrible game as well. But with Ashton Dueling, the past two games, he's demanded six targets, 7 targets as well, respectively in week 1 and 2. Had a 13.2 fantasy day as well. In a game that didn't see any touchdowns scored on the Colts side of the ball for offense. And they've got a pretty good matchup against Kansas City, who's going to force Indianapolis to throw the ball, and who's, I would assume, is going to load the box to try to minimize Jonathan Taylor's impact on the game for week 3. Moving on to my number 2 pick for values at wide receiver for week 3 is Greg Dortch. Assuming that Rondale Moore is going to be out again with his injury, they're saying that he's going to be out for a couple more weeks. He's demanded 9 targets in week 1, 4 in week 2 with a touchdown, with an average of 14 fantasy points over the course of this season so far. They got a matchup against the LA Rams, who Jalen Ramsey's going to be really shadowing Marquise Brown in that matchup at home in Arizona. We can only assume that Greg Dortch, Zach Ertz, and AJ Green are going to be really seeing a lot more targets with Jalen Ramsey shadowing Brown. But with the pass rush that the Rams are known for, I can only imagine that Greg Dortch is going to be a really good hot route outlet for that Arizona Cardinals offense, and for Kyler Murray to typically, scramble a lot, continue to extend the play and find Greg Dortch on a lot of scramble plays for first downs or short yardage gains. Moving on to my third-ish pick for this week, heading into week 3, is Curtis Samuel and Jahan Dotson. Really, because they're so close in price point. Curtis Samuel at $5,100, Jahan Dotson at $4,600, demanding 5 targets each week, with the average of basically 18 points of fantasy points each week so far in the NFL season. A lot of that stemming from his touchdown equity here: 2 in week 1, 1 in week 2. Then on the flip side of that, again, Curtis Samuel, who is having one of the best comeback seasons that I can remember in a very long time, demanding 11 targets in week 1, 9 in week 2, scoring a touchdown in both weeks, also getting production in the run game, 4 attempts and 1 attempt in week 1 and 2 respectively. He did lose a fumble in week 1, but still he's putting up 20 points for fantasy so far this season at a $5,100 price point. As you can see, they still haven't adjusted his salary to really correlate with what he's been able to do so far this season. So although I'm listing Jahan Dotson as well, Curtis Samuel's production isn't exactly tied to his touchdowns as well. So $5,100 for 20 fantasy points, I'll take that every single day of the week, allowing me that flexibility throughout my roster builds for week 3. Moving on to our fourth receiver in week 3 for my top values is Devonta Smith. In week 1, he laid a goose egg of 0 against the Detroit Lions. That was really centered around the Jalen Hurts and A.J. Brown connection. Didn't see any receptions, only saw 4 targets. I'm filming this on Monday night, and so they're not going to show week 2 stats yet, but the game just concluded. Devonta Smith had 7 targets with 7 receptions for 80 yards for this game, so definitely had an uptick in his production heading into week 2. They're just going to have to get him the ball. They can't exactly depend on A.J. Brown to have the massive fantasy days, or not fantasy days, but massive days of production as he had in week 1. They're going to have to spread the ball around. Playing against Washington, I can see this definitely being a shootout. The way that Carson Wentz has been able to throw the ball and really produce this year. Devonta Smith at $5,200, being priced super low because of his production in week 1 and not quite having the results for week 2 to determine his salary. You're going to get him at a pretty good value at $5,200 to allow you to give you flexibility for your roster builds heading into week 3. My last value for wide receiver heading into week 3 is going to be Allen Robinson. Now, I had Allen Robinson in week 1 videos as one of the top values, and really didn't live up to the hype that I was putting him on against Buffalo, who just beat them down for week 1 in that Thursday night kickoff game, showing only 2.2 fantasy points on the day. He had a good bounce back week against Atlanta, as we thought he would, with 5 targets on 4 receptions for a touchdown. I can definitely see this definitely going up throughout the season, especially playing against Arizona, who's going to force Rams to throw the ball a lot more. I would rather see this at 6 or 7 targets. I think that is very possible for him to get there. He's going to have to find a different target other than Cooper Kupp as far as Matthew Stafford goes. He can't depend on Cooper Kupp. Defense is going to key in on him. They're going to take him away as far as having him be an option for Stafford as his favorite target. So with Robinson being there, I think he's going to play a big role in this Arizona Rams game for week 3, especially with the $5,700 price point. He adds a lot of value to your roster, assuming that you're going to be building double stacks with bring back players as well. And in the case that Van Jefferson is out as well, only bodes better for Allen Robinson to have a big day for week 3. All right. So that was my top values for wide receivers heading into week 3 of the NFL season. Thank you guys for watching. Like and subscribe to the channel. Drop a comment on who's your top value for wide receivers heading into week 3 of this DFS DraftKings season. So thank you guys for watching the video. Come back for more fantasy football content. Thank you.